There was once a man named Daniel who lived on the outskirts of a vast and silent forest. The kind of place where the morning mist lingered a little longer, and the wind whispered through the tall trees like it carried ancient secrets. His wooden cottage, weather-worn but sturdy, stood alone on a grassy slope where the forest ended and a small meadow began. To the outside world, Daniel's life appeared peaceful, almost enviable. He worked a steady, unremarkable job in the nearby village, returned home before dusk, and rarely socialized beyond a polite nod or a short greeting. He grew his own herbs in a little garden, made tea every evening, and often sat quietly by his window, watching the trees sway under the fading sun. But what no one could see was the storm raging within him. Daniel's inner world was nothing like the tranquil surroundings he lived in. Inside his head, there was no stillness, only chaos. Thoughts collided and chased each other relentlessly like wild horses that refused to be tamed. At any given moment, he was consumed by 100 voices, regrets from the past whispering like old ghosts, insecurities shouting about things he couldn't change, fears about the future echoing louder than logic. He constantly replayed moments from years ago, a conversation where he said the wrong thing, an opportunity he missed, a person he disappointed. The present moment, though peaceful, never felt like home. His mind dragged him back to what was or pushed him forward into what might be, never allowing him to fully breathe in the now. Even during his quietest moments, when birds chirped softly from the treetops or when the scent of damp earth rose after fresh rain, something within him stayed restless. He could be sipping tea under a sky painted in the warm orange hues of dusk, yet a sudden thought would grip him. Why did I say that 5 years ago? Or, what if everything goes wrong tomorrow? These thoughts weren't just fleeting. They stayed, spiraled, and multiplied until his chest felt heavy and his breath shallow. He knew others would call it overthinking, but to him, it felt like drowning in invisible waves. Waves no one else could see. Daniel didn't know how to quiet this storm. Meditation confused him. Therapy felt foreign, and advice like, just think positive, seemed laughably simplistic. He tried reading books, listening to calm music, even going for long walks in the woods. But his mind, like a wild horse, would always break free and gallop back into the fields of fear, anger, or deep self-doubt. Each night he lay down hoping for rest, but even in his dreams, his thoughts found a way to haunt him. He wasn't depressed exactly, just exhausted. Tired in a way that no amount of sleep could fix. Tired of fighting his own mind every waking hour. Tired of pretending he was okay just because his life looked calm on the outside. Daniel wasn't searching for answers anymore. He was searching for silence. Not around him, but inside him. And so, while the forest remained still, Daniel's mind remained wild, a constant, invisible storm behind quiet eyes. One crisp morning, as the golden sunlight gently filtered through the tall trees, Daniel found himself walking along a narrow trail near his home, a path he often took when his thoughts became too loud to bear. The air was fresh, filled with a subtle scent of pine and damp earth. Dew still clung to the grass, and the only sounds around were the distant chirping of birds and the soft rustle of leaves moving with the breeze. As he rounded a bend in the trail, Daniel's eyes caught an unusual scene. Standing beneath a large weathered tree was an old farmer, his back slightly hunched, face worn by years of labor and wisdom. Beside him, tied loosely to the trunk with a rope, was a wild horse. The animal was clearly in distress. Its muscles were tense, its hooves striking the dirt aggressively, nostrils flaring with each breath. It tossed its head violently, tugging at the rope as if trying to tear itself free from an invisible prison. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, unsure whether to intervene or simply watch. What struck him most wasn't the wildness of the horse, but the utter stillness of the man standing beside it. The old farmer wasn't pulling the rope. He wasn't shouting, trying to overpower, or even making any effort to restrain the horse. He just stood there, calm, grounded, centered. His hands were relaxed. His eyes watched with patience, not panic. He didn't seem tense, frightened, or annoyed. It was as if he fully trusted the process, as though he knew something Daniel didn't. After a few intense minutes, a subtle shift happened. The horse's violent movement slowed. Its breathing steadied. The kicking stopped. It lowered its head slightly, its eyes no longer frantic. The rope went slack as the animal simply stood still. Perplexed, Daniel finally approached and asked, "How did you do that?" That horse looked completely uncontrollable. The farmer turned his head slowly and smiled, not with arrogance, but with a quiet knowing that came from experience. He said, "You don't control a wild horse by pulling harder. You wait, you stay grounded. When it stops fighting itself, that's when it listens." Daniel nodded but didn't say much. He continued his walk, but that scene stuck with him. That night, as his thoughts started to spiral again, he remembered the wild horse. He closed his eyes and pictured his mind as that restless animal, pulling in every direction. Instead of fighting it, he just waited. He didn't react. He didn't chase the thoughts. He just noticed them, like watching clouds pass in the sky. It wasn't easy. His brain still shouted, "What if she doesn't like you? What if you fail again? Why did you say that yesterday?" But this time, Daniel didn't answer. He let the thoughts come and go. Day by day, the noise in his head grew quieter. Not because it disappeared, but because he stopped feeding it with attention. He began to understand that controlling the mind doesn't mean stopping the thoughts. It means not obeying every single one. It's like standing beside a highway. Cars will pass, but you don't need to jump in front of each one. Over time, Daniel started choosing his responses instead of reacting out of habit. When someone insulted him, he didn't flare up. When fear showed up, he didn't shrink. He simply paused, watched, chose. And for the first time in years, he felt free. Not because the thoughts were gone, but because they no longer controlled him. So friends, your mind is like a wild horse. You can't break it with force. You calm it with patience, stillness, and awareness. Control begins when you stop reacting and start watching.